Hey everyone, welcome to Press TV's news review program where we get in-depth in one of today's top stories. Let's go. Leader of the Islamic movement in Nigeria, Sheikh Ibrahim Zakzaky, says he is returning to the African country after he was denied proper medical treatment in India.
Kun jo in sakonni dangane da ainihin da zaɓin da aka ba mu na kodai mu yadda a yi mana treatment a wannan asibiti ko kuma a koma da mu gida. To ɗazun nan sai suka zo suka ce to sun zaɓi komawa da mu da kuma yanzu a daidai nan karfe kusan 10 saura ne. tara da kusan rabi to kuma sun ce 11 da rabi za a kai ma airport don a koma da mu a Abuja saboda ka da abin da suka yanke kenan kuma sun turo.
Now, according to sources close to Sheikh Zakzaky, his personal doctors who are supposed to supervise his treatment were not even allowed to visit him. He was also denied access to his lawyers. The cleric has been in need of treatment for injuries that he sustained during an arrest in an army attack back in 2015. A Nigerian court allowed him last week to leave the country for treatment due to his worsening health condition. However, the cleric says he faced more restrictions in the Indian hospital than he did in prison in Nigeria. And joining us now for this news review is Kevin Barrett, author and academic out of Madison, Wisconsin, and Sayyid Hosseini, author and Islamic scholar from New Delhi. I guess I'm going to start with you, Mr. Hosseini. I mean, I know you've been watching this and following it very close. After all the protests, after all the bureaucracy, it takes a lot of air out of a lot of people's sails to see the Sheikh come to India and suffer this fate.
Well, through the whole day today, I was in the hospital trying to get access to Sheikh and talk to him concerning the situation. All of my effort was vain because no one was agreeing for me to meet Sheikh Zakzaky. Finally, I saw the Minister of the cultures in India when he was coming back from visitation, Sheikh Zakzaky. I approached him and I asked him to help me get access to Sheikh. He then asked one of the officials of the hospital to take me up, and they actually were helpful up to some extent. But when we arrived to the gate to the door of the room of Sheikh Zakzaky, we faced the Nigerian wall where they asked for identification, and I gave my passport plus the card that I had in my hand. They found a little bit of a discrepancy between this and that, and they found an excuse, and they refused me to approach Sheikh Zakzaky, and all of my effort to talk to him, unfortunately, didn't reach anywhere. And finally, although our brother Masood Shajara did manage to talk to him, but the reason that Sheikh has decided to have such a drastic measures is because for him, as a charismatic Islamic leader of IMN, the dignity the dignity is more important than health. And unfortunately, being in a luxurious hospital jail with the treatment that he was getting from the people around, with the disrespect that he had from the Indian authorities and also the Nigerian authorities, which he was surrounded by them. In one occasion, they have actually even beaten Sheikh with a gun. And in another occasion, when they asked for water, they have shouted at Sheikh and his wife. Yes, the hospital is luxurious, but for them, the luxuriousness of the hospital was not the issue. For them, the dignity and the dignified manner was something which they didn't manage to, they didn't have it. So that was the reason that Sheikh said, I don't trust these people. The whole reason that India was chosen is because the two doctors who visited Sheikh in Nigeria, they were from India, and they said, why you don't come to India? We have a large community, and we have hospitals ourselves, and we are connected to a lot of hospitals. We have a network of medical associations who will help. And based on those promises, Sheikh accepted to put India in the list of his flight, while they found Medanta Hospital and they put it into the agreement. And we thought probably this is not going to be so important for them that specifically it has to be treated in this particular hospital, which is, by the way, very expensive also. However, this hospital was like a greater luxurious jail for Sheikh when he was not, treated with dignity. And Sheikh is very sensitive about this issue, and that's why he preferred to return back to Nigeria, be in his own, humble jail, not to be in a luxurious hospital jail and treated like that. And that was a big message to the Nigerian people, to his followers, to Nigerian governments, that I haven't been overseas to escape my country. I am people's man. Even if you want to keep me out of Nigeria, I won't accept. And even if you were not sending so many troops with me to return me back, I am here. I am back to my country, and I am here to stay. And for me, being in Nigeria is more important than my health. Being in dignity is more important than my health. I think that is a great message that the Sheikh has given to the nation of Nigeria and to the whole world.
And Mr. Kevin Barry, we know how the Nigerian government has been treating the Sheikh for the last 4 years. We know how he's been treated in the last 24 hours. Help us put this all into perspective. Why?
The Nigerian government is afraid of Sheikh Zakzaky and his movement precisely because they are embodying the real Islamic values of standing up for truth and justice, even at the expense of persecution. This is the example that was set by the Prophet Muhammad, peace upon him, and the early companions of Islam, the Prophet's family. Those people suffered tremendously, and the Quranic revelation is all about standing for truth, al-haq, and against lies and falsehood, al-batil. And Sheikh Zakzaky has more than just about anybody else in today's world, and along with a small handful of people, really embodied those genuine Islamic values. And for that reason, he's a threat to the oppressive powers that be, and they would prefer probably to have him out of the country permanently, but I don't think they would trust him to stay out on his own. So, as we heard, apparently the Nigerian government sent all sorts of security people or thugs to surround him the whole way, and that shows their fear of him. It's, in a sense, I'm a bit surprised that they even allowed him to return. So often in this kind of situation, they would much prefer that the charismatic figure who can draw so much support from justice seekers in his own country stay somewhere else. We've seen examples of this with Gandhi, who was such a thorn in the side of the British, with his principled and spiritually based resistance movement. And we saw it, of course, with the Ayatollah Khomeini, who was outside of Iran for a long time. And when he came back, that's when, of course, he sparked the Islamic Revolution. And so in this case, I suppose the Nigerian government felt like they had to try to maintain control of the Sheikh. And so they surrounded him with their security people. But they couldn't manage to treat him with dignity, and so he ended up demanding to return even at the price of mistreatment. And this really shows the highest, not just Islamic values in the sense of the official religion of Islam and nominally Islamic values, but the real deeper spiritual religious values that are shared by people who follow the voice of truth and the voice of prophets in all traditions, that they would prefer persecution to going along with oppression. And so this is what the Sheikh has been standing up for throughout his career, and I'm not surprised that he's continuing to do so.
And Sayyid Hosseini, one has to ask why? Why after 4 years isn't the Nigerian government giving Sheikh Zakzaky the dignity that he deserves? What do they have against Sheikh Zakzaky? What kind of threat has he been to Abuja? A lot of people say none at all. He's actually been the opposite. He's been a role model, and he's strove to bring so many different factions and religious ethnicities together.
Well, he's not a threat to Nigeria. He's a threat to the Zionist regime. It's a threat to Saudi Arabia. And I don't know why the Nigerian should feel the heat. While he didn't have any soldiers, he didn't carry no gun, he didn't have any history of violation. The danger for Nigeria is Boko Haram. The government should deal with Boko Haram instead of Sheikh Zakzaky. Sheikh Zakzaky's activity was so much peaceful. Sheikh Zakzaky was Bilal of 21st century, Khomeini of Africa, and Mandela of Nigeria. He's not a terrorist. He's somebody that he's an asset to Nigeria. And he himself told me before his arrest that I have got a good relationship with Mr. Buhari before all of these atrocities happening. He himself told me that when Buhari wanted to become president on the first election, he would come to get photos with Sheikh in his area to print that photo and gain support to become president of Nigeria. That's how much they were, respecting, and they had consideration for Sheikh Zakzaky. What happened within 6 months? Somebody that you take photo with him to get vote of places that Sheikh Zakzaky has got influence. You can't turn to a terrorist in just 6 months. So the answer is somewhere else. The answer is in MBS interview with the Spiegel, the newspaper in Germany, when he said that we in Nigeria prevented Shias to progress. So that means that he was behind all of the atrocities. It means it is an admission by Saudi Arabia that they have interfered. It is the money of the Saudis and the Israelis who paid to the generals of the army, and some of these officials bribed them, gave them enough money for them that to look after the interest of the Israelis and the Saudi Arabian authorities than the interest of their own country. If they are logical enough, they will look at Sheikh as an asset to Nigeria, as a help to Nigeria, as a color for peace, and they respect Sheikh and they love Sheikh. Sheikh is not an enemy of Nigeria. Sheikh is not a terrorist. Sheikh is a Gandhi. Sheikh is a Mandela. Sheikh is a Khomeini of Africa. Sheikh is respectful. Sheikh is dignified. Sheikh wants the dignity of Nigeria. And unfortunately, the government of Nigeria, they don't know who is the enemy and who is a friend.
Interesting. And Mr. Barrett, your final thoughts before we wrap this up.
Well, I agree with what we just heard. And it's too bad that the authorities in Nigeria are allowing corrupt foreign despots in places like Riyadh and Tel Aviv to pay them off to mistreat their own people. This is a kind of unpatriotic or even arguably treasonous behavior. It's very much like what we witness right here in the United States, where our own highest officials have accepted money and other favors and influence from those precise countries, especially Israel, at the expense of the United States. The Nigerian leadership needs to put Nigeria first and change its policy towards the Sheikh, just as the United States government needs to put America first and change its policy and kick the Israeli lobby out of Washington, D.C.
Gentlemen, I want to thank you both for joining us. We're out of time. Mr. Kevin Barrett out of Madison, Wisconsin, and Sayyid Hosseini joining us from New Delhi. And viewers, That's a wrap for this segment of your Press TV's News Review. Thanks.